At work, what's a red flag that only the people who are lowest on the totem pole are likely to notice? This applies more to the tech industry. But when the CEO calls a meeting out of the blue and says they have plenty of funding, start interviewing. Should have done this at my last insurance gig. They suddenly brought us all in and told us we were all secure in our jobs despite a recent turnaround in the market. One guy in my department started looking immediately. He left shortly thereafter. 2 weeks after he left, they told everybody we were getting canned in 4 months. Red flag waving and flapping loudly when they start telling everyone how great everything is. Jobs for years, clients super happy, lots of funding etc. Big bank sent out email and had managers give group pep talks about how great state of banking was. Didn't say state of the bank though. I started looking around. Few weeks later they announced a big reorganization and the opportunity to apply for any and all jobs in reorg. What they didn't say was how many jobs, so I packed up and left because I found another job. Sure enough 7,000 jobs for 10,000 employees, and it was dog eat dog. A hiring freeze and mandatory overtime raises a few eyebrows. The second a job tells me I have mandatory overtime if I'm salaried, not hourly is the second I quit without notice. And that's why our current overtime laws are ineffectual. It should pay at 2.5 times the normal rate instead of 1.5. 1.5 doesn't encourage the hiring of workers to assist with influx of labor, because 1.5 is still cheaper. 2.5 times the normal rate is an actual penalty to dissuade employers from overworking their staff. My company had some mandatory overtime last year, but going from 8 people on site to 6 was the cause. One put his notice in, NBD. Then the warehouse manager who was superhuman doing the work of 3 people died unexpectedly. It was everyone's on overtime or we lose our current contracts, and then nobody has a job. Doing the work of 3 people died unexpectedly. Don't think it was that unexpectedly. He was probably severely overworked. As someone who used to be busy most of the time, the fact that I found myself stretching 30 hours of work into 40 all of a sudden was the first sign of bad times soon. Shortly after that started, our boss announced that there was a cash flow problem due to a combination of factors: less work, clients not paying, projects not progressing, thus not being able to bill hours etc. I started looking for work immediately. Have had some interest but nothing concrete yet. The first person got let go last week, a recent hire. I doubt him next, but you never know. Even if you're not next, the guy who is will probably get a slight stay of execution if you quit. I know. I have a little bit of survivor's guilt because I basically turned down a position about a month ago. They changed their mind about having me in the office I interviewed for and wanted me to relocate to another office. If they had decided to hire me for the local office I would have left, and that person might still have a job. My old boss friend started my pay at $5 an hour, promising me that I would be paid minimum wage soon. That never happened. All I did was sell an comic stuff for 7 hours in price MTG, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards all day. I stopped putting in my all because I knew it wouldn't change the fact that I was living paycheck to paycheck. I asked her why I hadn't been receiving minimum wage, even though she promised it. She told me I didn't deserve to make minimum wage. I quit a week later. I had been super sick with bronchitis and a sinus infection and she refused to let me take off to see the drive. I was working 7 days a week. I got so sick I was coughing up blood. I worked there for almost 7 months. When your manager boss makes promises about money, don't believe it. Also, don't work for your friends, especially if they are your boss. It puts you in the most awkward situations ever. I work for a big time bakery that spans around the globe. White teddy bear mascot. Our bakery has undergone massive changes and shifts in market coverage. As of late we have lost a lot of work at a location. I started 4 years ago at the bottom as #23 of 23 drivers and enough work for at least 25. I'm currently #16 of 18 and barely enough work for everyone. But apparently, business had never been better or nothing to worry about. Or my favorite, they are not taking work away from us. Quit fear-mongering. At what point are you guys going to realize we've lost 1/3 of our work and it's all happened in the last couple years? My company has quarterly slumps in deliveries like this. End of the quarter and the state funding has run out until the new quarter. We started calling it Fun Day Mondays because those agencies would force us to slack off, only to slam us with huge orders the next Monday when their funding came in. Worsening conditions in the back room. The more stuff that gets backstocked, the more full the backroom gets, which makes it harder to keep it organized, which makes it harder to find what you need to send to the sales floor, which means less product on the sales floor, which means fewer sales. Fewer sales leads to less profits, leads to fewer hours for the low-level employees, leads to the backroom getting worse. Retail logistics is a vicious cycle if you let it be. Where I work, the grocery manager tells us to put as much product on the shelf as possible, so we have more space in the back for the sale items. I worked retail at a corporate-owned chain. Corporate would send us multiple pallets of things on sale that none of our customers bought. They sent us like 5 pallets of Halloween cereal that sat in the store until December. Then we had to put it on special clearance for $1.50 just to get rid of it. Admin shutting off access accounts when layoffs are happening. When our CEO got laid off, I heard the admin who got the orders had his sphincter tighten and triple checked the order, likely he knew before any of the CEO's direct reports in the vast majority of the company. I knew a young lady who was chronically behind in her work. She decided to come in on the weekend to catch up, but she couldn't log into her computer. She gave up and went home, only to come back Monday morning and get fired. The department head changed her password Friday night. I mean, being so poor at managing workload and not communicating that situation to management that you're coming in on weekends isn't much of an improvement on just not doing the work. I'd say it is. Coming in on the weekend shows that she has the willingness to get the work done. Sure, she should communicate better, but she is actually trying. I worked for a company that went under a few years back. A huge red flag was that many items were backordered, and those backorders were not being fulfilled. Think about it. A backorder is something that is guaranteed money. A person has already set money aside for that item on a CR card. In most cases, all that has to be done is the item restocked and sent to them, and the company automatically gets paid. So when the boss made the decision to stop restocking many of the items people had ordered, that was a huge red flag that something was seriously wrong. Many of the positions held in the company never would have noticed this, but those who worked in the call center realized something big was happening. You don't take hundreds of orders for items and subsequent calls wondering where the heck the item is, without wondering just what's going on. When a company pays you every 2 weeks, it's usually to make interest off of your weekly payroll. When you're a line cook in a kitchen stepping stone job you should be actively moving out of, and the kitchen manager flips out in a so-called rush of 8 tickets. A real high volume restaurant is seeing 10x more tickets in peak times. Leave that place. When working in a small business like a restaurant and the owners are driving luxury cars and the staff is taking the bus, leave that place. You're helping them live the dream off of your back. In my entire career of probably about 10 jobs, I've been paid on a weekly basis at, I think, one of them. Few of these companies were on their last legs, and the payroll schedule didn't change on the few that were. Maybe it's different for hourly employees, but every 2 weeks or twice a month seems to be the standard in white-collar businesses. Every boss I've had, from the military to retail sales, who says, "I'm not here to be liked," has been incompetent. It's true you are not there to be friends with everyone, but if you have no people skills, you can't manage people. There's a big difference between a boss who says they aren't there to be liked vs a boss who isn't there to be friends. It's tough to be someone's friend and boss. There is a difference between friendly at work with your employees and friends outside of work with your employees. I've liked a lot of people I wouldn't consider friends. I can. Saying the following helps. I'm your boss and your friend. As your friend, I'm putting on my boss hat to tell you are not pulling your weight. I should not need to, and you already know how stressed I'm already. You are not helping me right now. I realize this doesn't count, but civilians may find this interesting. In the Navy United States, it's so well known, and at least it was in my ship oftentimes true fact, that if out of nowhere the ship's galley kitchen serves steak and lobster, there is bad news coming from the captain. Usually in the form of you're going on an unexpected deployment, your deployment's being extended, or something along those lines. It happened to us multiple times as to where we hated seeing that on the menu, and after dinner like clockwork the captain hit us with the bad news. Submarine service generally gets this menu every Friday, or at least it did when I was in. I was in 8 years 3 aircraft carriers, and we never received bad news after a surf and turf dinner. We received our bad news at ice cream socials. Efficiency experts are brought in to sit with employees and observe their daily tasks. Never a good sign. The irony of using expensive external consultants to tell you how to save money, except the consultants cost serious bank in the first place. You spend the annual salary of 5 of your staff for the consultants to give you common sense advice, which basically amounts to sacking those 5 staff. Net saving, 0. Expensive consultants are really only there to give cover to whatever management intends to do anyway. Gosh, I sure don't want to put people out of their jobs, but we have a 500-page analysis no one will ever read that says we have to. They're paid to look like the bad guy, so leadership doesn't have to. A drastic cut in your hours for those who work hourly service jobs. If you go from 5 shifts to 3, then down to 1 or 2, you're going to be let go. They're either waiting for you to get fed up with the hours and quit, or you're about to be fired. FWIW, this is a form of constructive dismissal, and in most states you're still eligible for unemployment insurance. Even if you quit as a result, though, you'll probably be denied on your first try and need to appeal it at least once. Helpful advice. This is the kind of commitment that's calling out for upvotes. Thank you for this. The place I'm at is doing this to a gal, and I think I'll be sending this to her. Called mobbing in some countries, and is illegal in some. When passing down the hall, people who ignore your good morning, unless they need something from you, or you're a higher up. This is a major red flag, and to anyone lowest on the hierarchy it's crystal clear typo. It's ridiculous, honestly. There's a security desk at the front door of my workplace. I say good morning and have a good evening every single day when I come and go. The amount of people who just walk right by this guy without even a glance toward him is insane. It literally takes only an ounce of effort to mutter a greeting to someone. A lot of people ignore my greeting because otherwise I'm quiet at my desk working. How is your being quiet an excuse? When greeted, it is customary to respond, right,